Welcome to Top Amazing Fact. Food, we all need it, and over the millennia, humanity has honed its ability to prepare, create, and cook a good meal. Throughout the centuries, however, what exactly constitutes a good meal has changed a lot. Did you know that pizza wasn't always cheesy? That chocolate wasn't always solid? And Jell-O, oh God, Jell-O used to look so bad. Clearly I got curious. So come with me as I cook some food the way it originally was. If I don't give myself food poisoning, it'll be a miracle. Renaissance pizza. Is there anything more American than grabbing a hot slice of pepperoni pizza? Well, technically, pizza is Italian. But before you roll your eyes, consider this: pizza has been around for a lot longer than you might think. The first known use of the word pizza dates back to 997 CE. I won't be going that far back, though. Instead, I'm diving into a pizza recipe that's been handed down from Bartolomeo Scappi, who was the world's first celebrity chef back in 1570. Scappi cooked for several popes before publishing his famous recipe book, which includes a variety of pizza recipes. Since one of his recipes has already been tackled by Max Miller on Tasting History, and because I'm a glutton for punishment, I chose the most unconventional one I could find. So what's in this unusual pizza? Here's the lineup: 1 cup of almonds, 3/4 of a cup of pine nuts, 7 or 8 figs, 10 dates, half a cup of raisins, 8 biscotti biscuits, 6 eggs, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, butter, and about 3/4 of a cup of rose water. Oh, and you'll need a pie shell of your choice. First, grab your mortar and pestle to grind up the biscotti or similar biscuits. The recipe says to do this separately, and honestly, it's pretty satisfying to do it the old school way. If you prefer, you can use a food processor, but I'm sticking with tradition for now. Next, use the food processor to blend the figs, raisins, dates, almonds, and pine nuts. Do this in batches because these ingredients get super thick and sticky. You might need to shake the processor a bit to ensure an even blend. Once everything is thoroughly mixed, transfer it to a mixing bowl and add the rose water. Now, separate the yolks from the 6 eggs, discarding the whites. If you have trouble with this step like I did, don't worry, just take a deep breath and try again. Melt 3 tablespoons of butter in a frying pan, then mix the melted butter with the egg yolks and sugar in a bowl until it's well combined. Now, line your pie tin with a puff pastry shell. You can make your own. But Scappi wasn't picky about this part, so I went with a store-bought option. Spread your mixture evenly in the pie shell, smoothing it out as best you can. Bake it in a preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. After that, lower the temperature to 320 degrees and bake for an additional 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it as it bakes. A good test is to insert a knife into the center. If it comes out clean, it's done. It will also start to smell like Christmas. And voila! You have a gorgeous, deep dish pizza. The texture is quite thick, and the flavors are rich and delightful. The rose water adds a subtle floral note that complements the fruity and nutty base of the pie. As strange as it might seem, this Renaissance pizza was closer to what people ate before savory flat pizzas became popular in the 19th century. This dessert-like pizza is incredibly delicious, though a bit heavy. Now, imagine what it would be like if you combined Scappi's pizza with a modern one. What do you think that would taste like? If you think Scappi's pizza is more authentic than one with pineapple on it, hit that like button. If not, hit subscribe. I'm off to grab some lunch after all this dessert. Aztec hot chocolate. Where would we be without chocolate? By which I mean, where would I be? I'm probably 30 pounds lighter and a whole lot less happy. But did you know that despite our fondness for this sweet, smooth, creamy candy, chocolate actually traces its roots back to at least 1500 BCE in Mesoamerica? It didn't come in convenient bar form either, but it was a thick, gooey drink. The Aztecs in particular had a strong affinity for this stuff. Far from a simple treat, however, the Aztecs believed that chocolate or chocolatl was a gift from the winged serpent god, Quetzalcoatl. The Aztecs enjoyed their chocolate with reverence in the form of a cold drink flavored with hot spices, which is interesting because I am a wimp when it comes to spices. So let's put it to the taste test. For this recipe, you'll need 90 grams of 100% dark cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, 1 teaspoon of achiote powder, and 2 cups of water. If you want to add some sweetness, avoid regular white sugar. I'd recommend 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw cane sugar, which has a distinct taste. If you can't find 100% cocoa powder, you can substitute in high percentage dark chocolate. Leave it in the refrigerator or freezer, then grate it into a powder before cooking. To go along with my chocolate, I'll also be making some popcorn using some popping kernels. We'll get into why later. To prepare, you'll need a couple of pots or saucepans, a whisk, and some measuring equipment. Begin by adding water to the pot and heating on a medium temperature. After a minute or two, add the cocoa powder and give it a stir. Add the sugar at this point, if you're using it, and stir it in. Then add a spoonful of chili flakes. Yes, I know, but trust me. Then add your achiote powder. Bring the mixture to a boil. Once it begins to bubble, reduce the heat and stir as the concoction becomes nice and thick. Yeah, that's the stuff. While you may be tempted to guzzle your hot chocolate down now, that wouldn't be authentic as the Aztecs would typically consume the drink cold. And while you're waiting for your chocolate drink to cool down, consider making yourself a nice bowl of popcorn. While it may seem like a super modern snack, evidence of popcorn cobs in Mesoamerica actually dates back around 6,000 years, and the Aztecs didn't just eat the stuff, though. They decorated with it, making garlands, necklaces, and ceremonial headdresses. A lot of people will recommend you use a little oil in the pot when making popcorn, but you don't need to, and it's certainly not what the Aztecs would have done. They popped their kernels in vessels placed on hot coals or sometimes just on the coals themselves. If you don't have any coals lying around, don't worry. Your pot with a lid on medium-high will do just fine. Listen to that. Apparently Aztecs would call the sound of popping kernels to poca. Kind of sounds like it, huh? After a few minutes, it should be finished up and beautiful. Alright, now our chocolate's cooled down. It's time for a taste test. See how thick it is? Bottoms up. Mother of. So for starters, it's way spicier than you might think. Just a teaspoon of achiote and chili goes a long way. It's also really thick, closer to a sauce than a drink. For all my inability to handle spice, though, it's got a wonderful flavor and I'd recommend giving it a try with and without the cane sugar. Just steer clear if you can't handle your spice. Thick chocolate means it sticks to your tongue. Please, milk, I beg. Aspic. When I was a kid, nothing made me happier than a bowl of Jell-O. The color, the sugar, the jiggle, it was pure joy to a hyperactive kid. But what if I told you there was a time in recent history when you might have found onions, ham, or even shrimp in your Jell-O? This is an aspic, and in 1950s America, it was all the rage. Thanks to the advent of instant Jell-O in 1897, combined with the production boom of the 1950s, which spurred on industrious and disturbed American minds. For several decades, jellies with meat and vegetables were frequently served as main courses and were seen as a novel and impressive dish. While this may sound crazy, aspic likely predate dessert Jell-O. Have you ever wondered what seafood aspic tastes like? It's a dish with a surprisingly long history. A 10th century Arabic cookbook even features a recipe for seafood aspic. And in 13th century England, English monks enjoyed meaty jellies. Despite its popularity for centuries, aspic fell out of favor after the 1980s. Was that a fair judgment? Let's find out. We're diving into a classic 50s aspic recipe, which requires 2 packets of instant gelatin, 2 cartons of tomato juice, cooked prawns, 1 tomato, 1 onion, 1 bell pepper, 1 head of lettuce, Worcestershire sauce, salt. You'll need a mixing bowl, whisk, ladle, cutting board, measuring cups, a pot, and a mold for your Jell-O. Start by chopping the onion, bell pepper, and tomato into bite-sized pieces. Set them aside, they'll go in raw, but don't worry, they'll cook in the gelatin. In a mixing bowl, combine 1 cup of water with the 2 packets of gelatin. Stir until you get a sludge-like mixture. Next, Heat 1.5 cups of tomato juice in a pot until it's just simmering. Add half a cup of water and whisk together. Mix in about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce and whisk again. Take your gelatin mixture, which should be thick and chunky, and spoon it into the pot. Stir thoroughly until the gelatin is fully incorporated. Add the remaining cup of tomato juice and whisk. Bring the mixture to a boil for a few minutes to ensure the gelatin dissolves completely. Remove from heat. Once the mixture has cooled a bit, pour it into the bottom of your mold, filling it up to about a fifth of the way. Chill in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. Now for the fun part, arranging your aspic. Add the chopped vegetables and cooked prawns to the mold in whatever pattern you like. Just remember that you'll be adding more liquid, so space them out a bit. Pour more of your gelatin mixture over the top, ensuring it seeps into every nook and cranny. Leave about a third or quarter of the mold empty for now. Return it to the refrigerator for another few hours, or overnight for best results. When the aspic is solid, it's time for the final layer. I placed my lettuce at the bottom, creating a bed of greens, but feel free to arrange everything as you wish. Pour the remaining gelatin mixture on top and refrigerate again. After a couple of hours, or when the aspic is fully set, gently remove it from the mold. And there you have it, your aspic is ready. Honestly, it turned out surprisingly well in terms of structure, though it does look pretty unappealing. When it comes to taste, it's like a salad suspended in tomato juice. The peppers and onions are fine, but the shrimp, well, let's just say my taste buds were not thrilled. The cold temperature and gelatin texture didn't do it any favors. So, would I recommend making aspic? Not really. It's an interesting experiment and the jiggly final product is oddly satisfying, but the taste, especially that shrimp, is not for me. Plus, it takes hours to make. So, take that, aspic. Garum. Every house, restaurant, and school I've ever been to has had a bottle of tomato ketchup. It's a universal condiment. In fact, one study found that the average American consumes 71 pounds of ketchup every year. For some of us, that number might be even higher. Despite ketchup's popularity today, there's an ancient sauce that puts it to shame, garum. The ancient Romans were absolutely obsessed with this sauce. They slathered it on fish, drizzled it on salads, flavored their porridge with it, and even dunked pastries in it. They even created sub-sauces by mixing garum with wine, vinegar, and honey. Now, here's the kicker, garum is famously kind of gross. It's made by fermenting fish guts, which had such a putrid smell that ancient laws required factories producing garum to be located on the outskirts of towns. Seneca of Hispania described garum as the extractive poisonous fish that burns the stomach with its salted putrefaction. So, yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste. Curious to see how it stacks up? Let's give it a try. Luckily, I didn't have to wait months for my fish to ferment like the ancient Romans did. Instead, cook J.M. Van Winter found a way to speed up the process in her 1976 cookbook, Van Soeter Koken. Here's how to make a quicker version of garum. You'll need 3 or 4 cans of small fish, I used pilchards and sardines, a handful of fresh mint, 500 grams of salt. For cooking, prepare 2 large pots, a colander, a roll of paper towels. Start by draining the brine from your canned fish and washing them under water. Place the cleaned fish into a large pot. Add enough water to completely submerge the fish. Cover the pot and bring it to a boil. Once the fish is boiling, add all 500 grams of salt along with the fresh mint. Bring the mixture back to a boil and let it simmer for 15 minutes. Now, I need to warn you, this is going to be one of the stinkiest things you've ever cooked. The smell of salty fish will linger in your house, on your clothes, and in your hair for weeks. Apologies for not mentioning that up front. After 15 minutes, lower the heat and let the pot simmer. Using a tool of your choice, mash the fish into a fine pulp. Go all out on that fish. By now, the bones and flesh should be soft and easy to crush. It's okay if some chunks remain, just get it as finely mashed as you can. Once you've mashed the fish, bring the pot back to a boil and let it cook for another 20 minutes. And seriously, the smell is intense. At one point during the process, I even heard a stray cat going wild outside my window. Just a reminder, the ancient Romans actually put this on pastries. While we enjoy our donuts with jam, they topped theirs with fermented fish juice. After about 20 minutes of simmering, your garum should start to thicken. Next, set a colander over a second pot and pour the fishy broth into it. At this stage, you can either discard the fish chunks or blend them and add them back into the pot, then bring it to a boil and strain again. But to get the best results, you want to remove as many chunks as possible. To do this, line your colander with strong paper towels and set it over the original pot. Pour the mixture into the colander, letting the liquid filter through. Transfer the liquid back and forth between the two pots several times, repeating the process. The more you strain and remove chunks, the clearer and better your garum will be. I did this 4 times, but you might want to do it even more for a smoother result. Once you're done straining, transfer your garum into a bowl for immediate use or a bottle for storage. Now, for the taste test. I'm going to dunk some bread into this stuff. Let me tell you, it's saltier than a spoonful of salt. The intense salty flavor hits you in waves. At first, it's overwhelming, and after about 10 seconds, the lingering taste was so strong I had to eat a handful of mint to cleanse my palate. Honestly, I don't know what the mint is supposed to do because it's completely undetectable in the garum. Alright, time to go all in and try it with something sweet. I'm about to put this on a pastry. Am I really doing this? Oh my god, it's so gross. The combination of fishy saltiness with sweet bread is just wrong. Absolutely not. Where's the vomitorium when you need one? Banana ham hollandaise. The 70s were a wild time, especially in the kitchen. With the clash between hippiedom and traditionalism. Suburban housewives were caught in the middle, resulting in some truly peculiar dishes. From frankfurter and corn casserole to tomato mayonnaise chutney and sardine and egg canapes. The era was full of culinary oddities. And today, we're diving into one of the weirdest, banana ham hollandaise. This recipe hails from McCall's Great American Recipe Card Collection. McCall's was a popular women's magazine with an impressive annual readership of 84 million at its peak. In the 70s, they put out a series of recipe cards featuring some truly curious concoctions, including today's treat. Here's what you'll need: 8 medium-sized bananas, 8 slices of ham, 2 packets of hollandaise sauce mix, lemon juice, mustard, single cream. For equipment, gather a frying pan, an oven-proof baking tray, and oven-proof baking paper. Start by lining your baking tray with paper. Peel all your bananas and arrange them on the tray. Here's a handy tip: bananas are easier to peel if you pinch at the end rather than pulling on the stem. Drizzle a little lemon juice on each side of the bananas to keep them from drying out too much while baking. Next, take a slice of ham, spread a bit of mustard on it, and then wrap it around a banana. If your ham is on the thicker side, this might be a bit tricky, but you'll manage. Once every banana is wrapped up, place them in the oven and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 minutes. While your bananas are baking, let's make the hollandaise sauce. In a frying pan, combine 1 cup of water with about 1/4 cup of cream, or more, depending on how thick you want your sauce. Add both packets of hollandaise mix and bring it all to a simmer, stirring occasionally. To avoid splash damage, I transferred the mixture to another pot. It should thicken up nicely, but if it gets too thick, add a little more cream or water to adjust the consistency. Once the bananas are done baking and your hollandaise sauce is ready, you're all set to serve up this 70s classic. Enjoy the unique blend of flavors and textures in this retro dish. Once the bananas have baked for 10 minutes, take them out of the oven and start generously drizzling your hollandaise sauce over them. At this point, as the pale gooey sauce slops over the ham-wrapped bananas, the dish's unappealing nature becomes pretty clear. If you grew up in the 70s and had to come home to this, my heart goes out to you. After covering the bananas with sauce, return them to the oven for another 5 minutes. When they're done, take them out and take a look. Mine came out a bit on the burnt side, which might be because modern ovens often heat up faster than those from the 70s. I didn't factor that in while preheating, so keep this in mind if you decide to try this recipe yourself. Alright, It's time for the taste test. No. I tried to find something to like here, but it just wasn't happening. The baked ham and mustard work together, but the sweet, lemony banana combined with the hollandaise sauce doesn't blend well. Instead of tasting like a cohesive dish, it felt like a bunch of conflicting flavors clashing in my mouth. Plus, it's tough to get a decent forkful. Overall, this recipe didn't turn out great. The sauce was too thick, the ham wasn't wrapped perfectly, and the bananas might have been in the oven a bit too long. Even if everything had been perfect, I doubt I'd be eager to try this dish again. Now, speaking of things that didn't go well, let's talk about my attempt at ancient Roman bread salad. This recipe comes from a 5th century Roman cookbook, though it was likely enjoyed even earlier. It seemed like an unusual sandwich made with herbs, garlic, honey, cheese, oil, vinegar, and water sprinkled over bread with the crusts removed. Here's where things went sideways. I followed the recipe in Latin, thinking it meant to remove the crusts, discard them, and season the remaining bread. However, it actually instructed me to use the crust to make crumbs and discard the rest of the bread. So, I ended up making something entirely wrong. Could I have avoided this if I spoke Latin? Probably. Were updated English versions of the recipe available? Yes. But I wanted to share my honest experience with you. So yes, I ended up with a weird, wet bread concoction no one's ever eaten before. Surprisingly, it wasn't half bad, though. And there we are, 5 dishes from history. Some resounding successes, others enormous failures. Which of these meals would you like to try, or maybe you've tried to make some of these yourself? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.